Okay, so we're gonna go ahead and explore our next painting techniques. And so once again, just like we did with that first page, we're gonna divide it up, and we're gonna put 3 more on this page. So I am going to put wash / glaze here, okay? And we'll talk about that later on. And then I am going to put next gradient. And then this one here is going to be loaded brush. Okay. So for this first one, your wash or glaze, you actually want to make sure that you have your water cup nearby, and we are going to be putting down a wash of color, okay? So as I go to do this, I want my paintbrush to be pretty watery, so I'm not going to dry it off with my paper towel, and I'm just going to dip directly into this purple color. Now, I'm gonna go on my piece of cardboard here to make this a little bit more watery and add a little bit more water in, so it's not thick like paint, but almost like a watercolor. So after I've done that, I am just going to brush on here. Now that's still a little too thick for what I want, so I'm gonna go ahead and I'm going to add more water. There we go. Do you see the difference between this side here and this over here? It's not quite so chunky. So now it's going to go on a little bit more like a watercolor, and I would encourage you guys to do this in a couple of spaces, okay? I'm actually going to do this with a yellow color here. So same thing. Don't worry about your water, guys. I know it's gonna get dirty. This is all just practice. Don't need to go refill it. So we will get back to this one tomorrow, but you just wanna make sure that you have these nice thin layers here so you can see the paper underneath of it, okay? And we will talk about the significance of this one later, okay? So now, the next one, so take a second, we're gonna pause and you guys can create a few swatches there. Okay, so the next one that we are going to talk about is we are gonna talk about gradient. So now I am gonna rinse out my brush, use my paper towel to dry it off. So with gradient, the posters that are over on the side of the room that are transitioning from one color to another, those are going to be a great source for you guys to use. Here, I'll move my camera just so you can see. Those are what I'm talking about. Those right there, those posters, okay? So for this one, you are going to select a color, and if you're looking at the color wheel, you're going to go around to that color. So we're having one color transition into another. So I am going to start with blue and end with orange. So that means I have my blue here, and you're gonna have to do a little color mixing for this. So now I'm gonna take my blue. Remember, you can use your popsicle sticks. I'm gonna use my green, and I'm gonna kind of mix those a little bit together to get a nice blue-green. Now I'm going to go to green. Notice I'm not rinsing on my paintbrush too much right now because these colors are blending together, and that's okay. But you can get a nice transition of colors here. That is the purpose of this. We don't want it to look like, we want them to be blending together, okay? So sometimes what I'll do is like I just did there. I just rinsed it. I just wiped off my paintbrush and went back over it, okay? So now I'm just going to use that solid green color. And what I like to do is I like to start here, below it, beneath it, and then go back in and mix it together. And then I'm just going to use this yellow that I already have on my mixing cardboard. So now I need a little bit more yellow there, so I'm going to wipe off my brush. And now I'm going to end with that orange. And since I've wiped off my brush here, I'm just going to dip right here. And now I have a gradient of colors, transitioning smoothly from one to another. If you have, mine got a little big, but you guys can certainly, I would encourage you guys to practice blending those from one to another. If you can leave a little bit more space for that, try it a couple times, okay? So go ahead and take some time to paint your gradient. Okay, so we are going to go look at the loaded brush technique, which is probably one of my favorites. And I'm going to show you guys how to do it in a couple of different ways. So I do for this one, I do want you to make sure that you have a section to do it a couple times. So if you want to divide it in half, you certainly can. But what this means is that a loaded brush means you are putting more than one color on your paintbrush at a time. And so you're gonna want to make sure that you are using colors that mix well together. Otherwise, you're gonna get some disasters. So please, when you're doing this, do not dip directly into the paint palettes, since we need to continue to use those and we don't want those to be super, super dirty. So for this one, I am going to be using some white. So I should have gotten more popsicle sticks. You guys remember, one per color for you guys. You know that. You're a better example than me. Okay, and then I'm going to dip in a little blue. I'm going to use some of this magenta. Oh, look, I just got that dirty. I'm such an awful example. All right. So now I have my 4 colors that I'm going to use for this first loaded brush technique here. So I've rinsed out my brush, and make sure to dry it off. We don't want it to be super wet. Honestly, guys, we never want our brush to be super, super watery, so just always have a paper towel to dry it off, okay? So now what I'm going to do is in here, I'm going to get this up here so you guys can see it. I'm going to just simply dip into there so you can see the white. I'm not mixing colors together. I'm just putting them on top of each other. And so I'm dipping into the blue. Okay, there you go. And then the purple. So all 4 of those colors are on there. So now when I go to use those to just brush onto here, if I'm just creating a streaky line, you can see all of those colors come through a little bit, which is kind of cool, can create some really nice background effects. You can blend them together, but it just creates a really cool effect. So let me zoom in on that for you. So that's one way you could do it, just by doing a background, okay? The reason why I had this section here that I left open is because I wanted to show you guys like how it could actually look if you were painting something in. So I am just going to keep this very simple. You can just copy what I'm drawing. You do not have to. But like I said, just to make it easier, do what you want. So I am going to just draw a little flower, just quickly. I know this is the greatest flower you've ever seen in your life. Okay, so here's a little leaf. So what I'm going to do for this is I'm just going to show you how using this technique can actually create some cool effects without doing a lot of blending and overthinking it, okay? So I'm going to start with this center of my flower. So I'm going to use a little yellow and some orange. And I'm going to use that white again. So in my brush, take the white, orange, yellow, and I'm just going to kind of paint around. So now it just kind of blends them together a little bit. If I had a brown, that would probably look pretty nice in there too. So that's kind of, you can see those details there. So now I'm going to go ahead and I'm going to kind of use the same colors just because I know I already have those that I did for this above one. And I was going to make it like a sunflower, but then I painted the inside yellow, so that doesn't make sense. So now I'm going to do the same thing. I'm using a little bit of a smaller brush this time, so don't overload it with color. And now as I go in and paint, some of the new colors are going to be revealed. Don't overblend it. Okay, so now you can see how some of those kind of look together a little bit. Just kind of creates an interesting effect. Now I know I have tons of white spaces and things. I just don't have a lot of space to work right now. But experiment with that. Draw something. It can be the flower. And then just practice on a background too. So those are some good ones to get going with to practice that loaded brush technique. And like I said, we will get back to this wash or glaze in a little while, but take some time to do that loaded brush right now.